is bonsai? What's happening right now? I know, babies. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. This is a very special episode of TableTakes where we all are farsighted or nearsighted, and we've got a special guest. We're saying hello to new friends. We're saying goodbye to old friends. It's a very special episode of TableTakes, and I'm so glad that you guys have joined us for this episode. We want to welcome Michelle.
Hi.
Michelle,
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being here, Michelle. So, top of the show, we always ask, how was your week? What you been up to? What you been doing? How you been living, Michelle?
Oh, well, this week has mostly been ceramics. So when I'm not doing tabletop D&D magic stuff, I am basically playing around with clay. And I had a shop update like a couple of weeks ago, and so I've been spending a lot of this week just I've become very good at packaging things, particularly delicate items. So definitely spent quite a bit of time figuring out how to send out a porcelain land station for magic cards, which is a surprisingly tricky task. So a lot of like other boxes creating a field of suspension within this little vessel. A lot of that also just throwing some more porcelain items. I'm working with Dokke Beer, which is a cute little local Korean American owned beer business in the Bay Area. They came up with a Minari wit beer, which was done in collaboration with the film, and I was so inspired by it that I was like, hey, can I make you a Pilsner glass? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. So
show us the mug. You got a mug.
I have it. I have a mug, but I don't have the Pilsner mug, but this is a mug that I made.
Oh,
it has my little mascot on
cute.
it.
Oh gosh, I can't handle it.
So
I love it so much.
And then I made a teapot. Yeah. That was teapots are intense
too, right?
I'm sorry?
You have those to sell too, right?
I do. So if you're interested in porcelain or stoneware items that can help you drink beverages in a more collected manner, that are usually dishwasher microwave safe, you can check out my website, killenfiendpottery.com. We can see like semi-okay pictures of me and better pictures of my pottery.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. This is your inaugural episode of TableTakes, am I right?
It is. This is my first time.
The first time, and then we're just going to rope you in for more stuff. Emma, what have you been up to this week?
I have a mug. I don't think I've shown off my new mug yet. It's not
we're just showing off our
mugs. It's not a Kilton Fiend one now. I'm like I need to make more mug spaces now because I definitely need one of these. But this is one that I got at Mock's Boarding House. I went there the first time in a long time. I haven't been in there in a very long time. They have so much merch now, including this one, which is dice around a table having a tea party, and there's snails in there, and they're all dice, and they have faces, and they're happy, and there's a flower.
Love that.
That's so cute. I love you, Mox. I love you, Card Kingdom.
No, everything unfolded to me when I saw. I was like, oh, those are dice, and they're hanging, and they have faces, and they're having a tea party, and yes,
it's like a very wholesome Bosch painting. You're like,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Like, oh,
well, Mox knows Emma, so I'm wondering if that was specifically designed as a trap for Emma when she arrived.
Oh yeah, it's like she'll be back here in like 6 months or whatever, and we're gonna get her. They had dice.
I'm just imagining the staff like behind being like, yes, got her.
I love them so much. They're such a great company, and they're full of good people. So
yeah.
Yay.
Same.
Derek, sir, the bearded one, most War of Hammers. How have you been?
First among 40,000 hammers.
Yep. I mean, a whole lot has happened this week. I think that we are officially like real homeowners now, because we've started getting the "call us about your home, we'd like to purchase it sight unseen" advertisements kind of stuck in our door. And I'm like, we just got it. Can you let us enjoy it a little bit first?
But like, is there a number? Is there an amount that you would?
No. I mean, is there an amount? Absolutely. Do I expect to get that amount? Not even in Seattle. Not quite yet. But yeah, so there's that. My wife has been going around and leaving little notes and candies and like cat toys in people's mailboxes all around the neighborhood to introduce herself, which is very adorable. One of our neighbors called the cops on her today. So that was a remarkable exchange, but everything seems fine now. And in other news, Mass Effect has been released. So she also made me stay up last night until like 2 a.m. because she makes me play it for her. And she tells me who she's going to smooch and who she's going to yell at and all that kind of stuff.
Why
so
else
she picks
get
up the
married?
dialogue. I have to Yep.
Well, do we also want to give the announcements that we are sending you to the Shadow Realm as well?
Yep, I'm being exiled to the Negaverse after this episode.
Put out to pasture.
We are sending Derek upstate to the glue farm, and this is Derek's last. No, nobody knows what that is. That's it. Okay, never mind.
You don't say the glue part, right?
You don't usually say the glue part.
Went to go live on a farm.
To the farm where the goat make glue. This is Derek's last regular episode as a member of TableTakes. Derek has been our captain, our guiding star, our papa, the Robin Williams to our Dead Poets Society.
Aw, see, that's nice.
And Derek's still going to be around. Spoiler alert, Derek's not actually going upstate to the farm. Derek will still be working with Gen Con, doing other responsibilities, becoming a homeowner, becoming an adult, but just will not be wasting his Friday afternoons talking about Warhammer and explaining it to us for the 80 billionth time. But, Derek might, hopefully, possibly be back for some other very special episodes.
I'm sure there will be some Warhammer news down the road that I need to come back in and explain to you in full detail.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure every time that we have to talk about Warhammer.
What? Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Well, a little bit about me. I got my second shot. So on her way to being fully vaccinated. I got my second shot on Wednesday, half of Wednesday, like at 4:00. I passed out and then I woke up again on Thursday. I had a little project to do with Seattle Pride this year, which I don't know if I can even say that I did, but maybe I can. Who knows? And then blacked back out again, and then woke up this morning at 2 a.m. Super strong. Nothing hurts. My arm isn't even sore anymore. I'm strong. I'm a strong woman. I beat virus. I'm strong like bull. My body takes in corona and my body beats corona. Bare hands like that.
I love the way you described your body defeating corona. I kind of likened my experience to cramming for a final exam.
Yeah, my way of talking about it is just that my body beat up corona like it was a Russian woman in the woods fighting bears. How it happens.
I got my second shot on Tuesday, and I felt like more just my body just took a leisurely nap and let corona like slip past it in the night.
We all have different bodies, and all our bodies are beautiful.
My body's just a very tired college student after an orgo chemistry exam. Just like,
Well, I'm really happy that it sounds like we're all on our way to having some normalcy, and maybe we'll be able to do table talks one of these days in person. Speaking of things that don't happen in person, Emma, I hear that there's some Nintendo Switch news going on.
Yeah, we had talked about this a little bit recently. Oink Games has announced that it's launched its Kickstarter for Nintendo Switch versions of the Oink games. And there's just some ones that we talked about, Deep Sea Adventure and Startups. Kickstarter is live now. You can click on the link and see how it is going. And we had talked about how we weren't sure exactly how some of the games are going to translate to digital. but it is great to have some ways just to learn the games and dive into them. One of the things I was looking at is it looks like they've covered all the bases in terms of play. So you can play online with people, you can play locally with people, you can pass and play with people. So it seems like all of the details are there. As people contribute to the campaign, they're going to unlock more games, which is pretty cool. I would say the one thing I would say about this is I'm surprised it didn't blow up a little bit more. They've made their goal after a couple of days, but with their board game Kickstarter that they had a few weeks ago or a month ago, it was like $150,000. You know, Oink games on Kickstarter, we can buy these games that we love so much. And with the digital version, looks like might not go quite that intense, and it really is harkening back to my general feeling about video games on Kickstarter, and especially for on the Switch, you know, just the minor annoyance of, oh, I'm going to get the code, I'm going to have to enter it into the website to get the game. I know it's a tiny thing, but I'm kind of like, I'm excited about this, but I kind of just I don't really want to beta test it either. You know, it's just going to be there. So I just want to wait.
The first world of problems.
I know. I know. I just like, I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think if you're excited about this, definitely back the Kickstarter. I'm excited to see how it comes out, but it's also like, because they're so like when it's a board game on Kickstarter, you're hyping, you're like, okay, it's going to be here in maybe like a year. I'm going to forget about it. It's going to show up at my doorstep. There's this whole thing for it. But with a digital game, there's almost a little bit more like, I just want to know when it's here and then play it.
Do you think that that's because it's specifically for the Switch platform, and whereas for board games, everybody has access to board games, but for the Switch, it kind of cuts down on that only people who already have a Switch can get it and play with it?
Yeah, a little bit. I also think for board games, Kickstarter has become a store. It's not a store, but a lot of people treat it like that to get their newest board games, especially over the course of the last year. For video games, I still treat it a little bit more like a Patreon. Like I've only backed one video game recently, and that was by someone who's just like a really awesome, it was the Lo-Fi Beats Spirit Swap game, and it was just like, looks super adorable, and I love the creator and I want to support them, so I'm like, oh yeah, sure, you know, this I'll give you the money for this. But I've just been burned by video game Kickstarters in the past, and this is different, right? Because we know the games, you know, and Oink has a storied history of putting it. They've already made games digital, you know. It's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be negative about it, but I'm just like,
I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat, Emma, where there's been enough video game Kickstarters that I've backed where it seems like there was an underestimation of what goes into making a video game from a Kickstarter project. And some have turned out fine, some have turned out great. Most of them have kind of limped along and then gotten across the end one way or the other. So that has sapped some of my excitement about video game Kickstarters, but I almost see this as more like a board game one. It sounds like Oink is pretty well positioned to understand how to get these on the Switch. So I'm not particularly worried about that. Like that kind of usual concern isn't there. But there's definitely that feeling of, to back a Kickstarter, you kind of need to know why you should back the Kickstarter and why you shouldn't just wait for it to come out in retail and grab it then. And for me, that line is very much, you know, do I desperately want to see this thing happen one way or the other? And sometimes video games come up with that, but you know, for this, you know, I don't really play on the Switch. I'm not super interested in playing on the Switch. They mentioned that they might have stretch goals for iPhone and iOS and stuff like that, and that gets me much more interested. But until they've unlocked that, or until they do another campaign to unlock that, you know, it's a hard calculation for me to jump on board for the project when I don't know if they'll end up where I need them to be.
Yeah, the timing's also kind of weird too, because they're like, you know, things have changed when it comes, like now we can't play our games in person as much anymore. But a lot of people, all of us, right, we're coming up to our cusp on our 2 weeks vaccination. Like my friends are going over to people's houses and playing games in person. So like just right now, it's just like maybe again in the future, but for now I'm like, I can do this.
Although,
I'm just
I think
distracted. I'm like, games.
one interesting note there is, I don't know about the rest of you, but having to take games online in quarantine gave me the chance to reconnect with friends who didn't live in my area and play games online with them. And that, I think we've talked about that before. That's something that I hope doesn't go away after the quarantine is over. So having a bunch of, like, because a lot of the Oink games are really accessible, really fun, fast. They're just neat and idiosyncratic. And having those on a platform that we can play with people online will be great. But if it's limited to the Switch, it's just, that's not, So like, I look at this project and I want everybody to go back it for them to get enough money to then bring it to every other platform that I can then jump on.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're just like, okay, everyone back this. You, all of you back it so that it gets popular enough so that, and that's the biggest thing I would say is like, I'm a little nervous about the camp because I want this for sure. I want this to blow up. So they do invest into it. And I'm worried. I want to tell them, I want to be like, it's not your fault. This is a great idea. I love your idea. People are going to spend money on this. It's just weird times. That's it.
Well, speaking of games though, that you'll be able to play with friends in the future, got some news for y'all. Last week, we interviewed Into the Mother Lands and a couple of really awesome players from there. And we talked a little bit, thank you, a little bit about their new Kickstarter that they were releasing for their new setting book. And they didn't have exactly everything set up with their website and the Kickstarter and everything like that. But if you were interested in Into the Mother Lands, which if you haven't checked out, is so dope. It's so awesome. It's full of awesome, great people. It's so funny. It's so entertaining. Please check out. They're launching their season 2 coming up soon. And now that they have a settings book out, they've also launched their Kickstarter as well. So their Kickstarter page is up. You can click that little notify me when button for when the Kickstarter actually goes live so that you are immediately notified as soon as the Kickstarter goes up, and you can spend that cold hard cash and make it rain all over the Into the Motherlands crew, which should be awesome. I love this idea of being able to play and watching them and then being able to play in your play settings as well. This is a great timing as we all go, transition out of the Pan Dulce into, I'm still keeping up with them. I'm still thinking more P words. It's wild. And so we do that. And this one looks like a really awesome one. So I'm very, very excited about this. So check that out. And also check out last week's interview. If you missed it, it's still available online. You can watch it on YouTube, as you can watch all of our previous episodes on YouTube as well. So moving on, it sounds, Michelle, like some game designers should also be ready for a challenge.
Yeah, no, just to circle back with what you were saying about like people emerging from Pan Dulce, I was thinking like a bunch of people like emerging from conchas, like eggs. I'm just like Yoshi from a panda. Anyway, but speaking of things that are small and sweet, so yeah, this is a really fun challenge that is being brought forth by Button Shy Games. They're known for their monthly wallet games. They are looking for new designs for their 18 card challenge. This year, the theme is role-playing games. So if you've ever wanted to create just a short little concise, fun little game in 18 cards and just a few dice, this is your opportunity to try some stuff out, maybe talk to some friends, start playtesting, start scribbling on some typing paper or some post-it notes and see what you can put together. So there are some rules, but they basically, yes, as the contest is entitled, it's got to be 18 cards. They must be playing card size, so poker card sized, not squared, and basically it should be like bring it out of your pocket, bring it out of your wallet, and just get ready to go. And they've got some other things like you may use up to 3 6-sided dice or 1 full set of polyhedral dice. Just it has to be any. It seems like the rules here are very much trying to keep it as plug and play as possible. So no game master. If you have a pen and pencil, you can. But basically, yes, it should be 18 cards, very much ready to go, very much just if you've got like a lunch break or something and you want to like pretend to be, I don't know, earlier we were talking about like concept ideas and I was like, what about trash friends? Like you're all a bunch of trash animals, like like a pigeon and a rat and like a possum, and you're all role playing together to get inside.
Michelle,
Like,
don't talk about it on stream. Do it. Get your
okay, I was just like, okay, we're a bunch of trash friends and we're trying to get into the locked dumpster behind the 7-Eleven. Like, let's do this.
I love it.
This is great. No, because we talk about this idea of people who we've all played games. We've all kind of flirted with this idea of making our own games as well. And I love these new initiatives that try to get people to make games. And even if they're not good, that's not really the purpose. The purpose is not to make these like award-winning games. But the purpose is just to flex your creative muscles and to try to do something that's new and fun. So
I really am curious what's going to come out of it, though, because Button Shy has done really interesting things with the wallet format for like just normal tabletop games. They've had some really fantastic, very limited number of cards games. So to do this for an RPG is really intriguing. I think the things that leapt out to me the most was that they're really emphasizing that the cards have to be used in a mechanical way. Like those need to be kind of part of the fundamental element. Then not having a game master is also an interesting and pretty big challenge, I think, because having a game master allows you to skip a lot of stuff that you might otherwise have to build into the cards. And then finally, explicitly saying that they're not looking for a D&D light or a fantasy dungeon crawl clone or homage or something like that is also intriguing. Just, it's very clear that they want to try something new and different and see what comes out of it. So I'm real curious what weird mechanics will kind of come out of this. What people are going to do with 18 cards.
I've been incredibly impressed. I've got to play test some of these games. People have tested them in my group. I've watched the video for, I think it was the abstract game challenge, and just the raw creativity that comes out of these limitations is amazing. They get so many submissions, and just like the places people go that you would never expect are awesome. So yeah, I think we're going to get some cool stuff out of this. Innovation.
And as our ominous godlike producer says, Emma flirted with this so hard that Emma won an award for it.
Everyone is a game designer. So anytime people are like, oh yeah, game, what would be cool? That's where it starts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's like, oh yeah, a role-playing game. It would be cool if, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. You're doing it. You're making a game.
I love it. I love how you encourage people to make games.
Yeah. Just when I see new people who haven't done it before just start to do it, it blows my mind, the kinds of stuff that they come up with. So I love it.
That's true. Inside of every person is a small game designer, as Grandma used to say.
Desperate to get out and breathe air for the first time.
It's got to look hard enough inside of all that meat and flesh and bone.
This small game designer is also the same voice that tells you to drink more caffeine.
Speaking of games, that was a terrible one. I was crushing it so hard. I've heard that you're no longer going to go to jail for federal crimes against counterspelling, and that the U.S. Marshals will no longer be hunting down Magic the Player gatherings. Yep, crushed it. Nailed it, Emma.
Wizards of the Coast will not be hunting you down for counterspelling in modern.
Specifically, exactly. Counterspell is now legal in the modern format. We talked about it a little bit on the show. Magic the Gathering has different formats, one of which is modern. As Michelle was saying before the show a little bit, modern, a little bit out of favor right now because it is pretty focused in paper. It is, you can play it on Magic the Gathering online, which is different from Arena, but it's still mostly paper. So the last year has been rough on it. And Counterspell, of course, Counterspell, I never played the card Counterspell. I don't know if I've even seen it in person, but Counterspell is the word I use. So when I talk about in Magic the Gathering or any, it's the card. It's the action. Counterspell, I don't even know, Michelle, you might be able to speak to this, Michelle, if the term originated in Magic the Gathering, but Counterspell is the no card. Counterspell is the one that says, no, you want to do that thing? Nope.
So Magic the Gathering has its roots in D&D. So Counterspell does come, I believe, from D&D to start with, just because it's actually really fun when you're doing when you're playing D&D and you've got several counter spells on the stack, like you would in real Magic, which is really funny. But yeah, no, Counterspell is a very powerful card. It's considered to be basically just what it can counter whatever spell that your opponent has, and it's at instant speed, so you can play it during their turn, during your turn, at any point in the game. So it is very, very powerful, and it's usually used in a lot of tempo or control decks, basically decks that try to either stop entirely what you're basically controlling the flow of the game, such that your opponent can't really do the thing that they want to do, or basically in a tempo game, you keep them far enough back so you can start building your board and have this kind of fun little play dialogue there.
Yeah, so it was not legal in modern before. It has not been legal for some time, and now it is. So potentially look forward, if you are a modern player, to some shakeups, because any sort of banning or unbanning of a card can potentially really upend, and especially in modern. Like, modern is a format where people have their decks for years, if not decades, and just play the same deck up. Maybe not to quite as an extent as Legacy, but it's like standard changing your deck up all the time. But modern cards are expensive, you invest a lot into it. So for better or worse, changes are on the horizon. Last little bit of news for mechanics for Magic the Gathering is there's new details for Modern Horizons. I think I got that right because that's on the horizon. Modern Horizons 2. There's more details. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's coming up in Modern Horizons. A lot of good people I know at Wizards, like Gavin and Aaron Forsyth, Allison Steele, like they were working on the set, and I'm excited because if Counterspell is now legal, I'm like, what's going to happen in this set? What are they going to print? What's going to happen? This is going to be exciting.
Yeah. So quick, do you think that they were considering that they knew ahead of time that Counterspell was going to be legalized, and they were considering that as they were developing this set?
Possibly. So the thing about they're two different teams at Wizards, but they do talk to each other, and especially when you're thinking about the broader meta of the format, like an eternal format like Modern, I can't imagine them not having that conversation.
Yeah.
So I imagine that conversation was had. Whether or not it had to do specifically with this set is entirely speculation on my part. But I'm excited to see, like, ooh, if are we gonna ramp up the power level here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So we're going to be getting some boosters. We're going to be getting some bundles. Interestingly, we're getting pre-release packs too. They're having exclusive preview events between June 4th and June 10th. And as a reminder, as we talked about last week, in-store events at a high level, at least according to Wizards, will be a thing starting on May 28th, I believe. Again, as we said last week, might differ from store to store. Very much make sure you're following your local store's procedures and not getting mad or pushing against them. But there's definitely stuff playing and doing drafts for it. Like I've never drafted a modern set before, but I do love drafting. So it's like, oh, that actually sounds like it might be kind of fun.
Modern Horizons 1 was one of the best drafting experiences.
Really?
I love playing limited. It's probably my favorite format.
Same.
So that was an exceptionally well designed set for draft. So if you ever get the opportunity, like, go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds fun.
I love that Emma finally has somebody to talk magic with.
I'm geeking out over here. I'm just listening.
I love
more.
We all have separate kind of things that we kind of fill, and like Emma, like there's no one talks about magic.
Emma,
yeah,
there's a white blue blink deck that you can create in Modern Horizons, and it's so much fun. You can just like every turn there's like you can just make angels and like blink them, and I don't know, it's great.
Oh my god.
Emma has been in the desert for so long she doesn't know what to do with this wealth of water.
It's so cute. It's so cute. I love it. It's like when your like kid finally gets like another kid at the playground to play with, you know, and you're like, yes, I love it. But I'm still stuck on this idea of Magic the Gathering cops, and I feel like the first thing that I thought of was, I don't know if you guys have ever seen oh my god, the vegan police from
Scott Pilgrim?
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
That's immediately what you don't remember the vegan police? Emma?
I remember the vegan police.
My favorite. It's milk and eggs, bitch. Like, no, sorry, it's my favorite.
Gelato has eggs.
Oh,
it's worth revisiting.
Yeah.
I just imagine somebody just like whenever you use the stuff that's illegal, that they just like storm and raid the place and like everybody get the cards on the table, everybody get down. Like that's what I imagine.
Throw your deck on the floor. Like,
no.
It's more just for every event you have to like register your deck list. I'm pretty sure it's really just like someone coming over and be like, hey,
This is a shy nerd.
I read your deck list and this is banned.
That's so accurate.
It's just.
Well, speaking of playing in person and competitions, do you have some esports news?
Yeah, so kind of just some bubbly excitement there about new cards and releases. On the other end of the spectrum, really sad for a lot of people, is the Magic Pro League has been canceled. The MPL has been canceled, is no more. And there's an MPL tournament this weekend. So they announced this like 2 days ago, and there's a tournament. All of those people playing in the tournament, all of the announcers just lost their jobs and they're doing the thing. So awkward.
Yeah. This is not really so much of a surprise, I think, to a lot of folks, but it is because in the past few years, we've seen Magic Pro League founder around as folks were trying to figure out like how the new system for competitive play worked, for organized play. Before the MPL, we had a rather maybe not the most, a rather like traditional tournament system where like you start off at your regional Pro Tour qualifier, then you have the like Pro Tour qualifier, then you go to the Pro Tour and things like that. It was very much like a bracketed step-by-step situation. And I think in an effort to like try to get in on esports and try to make it so that we can, I think they wanted to like invest in personalities and like really promote Arena. Wizards really wanted to bring in some of the more prominent and professional players and to make them professional in order to basically have them do this full time. That kind of fell apart. And I think in some ways, I mean, we don't know how much the pandemic had to do with that, but it is really awkward, especially since, you know, we were seeing these things between like, because in addition to the Magic Pro League, we also had rivals, which were basically like people who weren't being paid, but were being supported to like have these matches. And if you didn't perform well in the Pro League, you get knocked down. So basically you would lose your job on air if you like lost a match, which was super weird and felt very Hunger Gamesy. So in some ways, I feel like it's good that we're revisiting or like retiring this, but on the other hand, in terms of like getting more support for competitive Magic, particularly for marginalized folks within the scene, like it's going to be even more unclear and uncertain how we can bring more representation to that part of Magic.
Yeah. I totally agree about like you put it in an excellent way, and especially for some of the subtleties of it. And I think when I heard about the MPL in the first place, it's like, well, that's kind of weird. It's kind of arbitrary. One of the weird things about it was it wasn't entirely clear why people were in or were not in. Like there was some stuff about it, but they're like, oh, well, other people like, well, I have like, why does someone get in and why does someone not get in? I was excited about it for this idea. It's like, what's the best way to put it? It's like because marginalized people don't, and in Magic the Gathering, it's women, non-men, people of color, they don't have the same resources. It's harder for them to move up ladders in a traditional way. So if you can, and other people will scream about affirmative action or whatever, but if you can have a way to to support these people, put them at the highest levels, because a lot of these people are playing at the highest levels, then you can get them out there, get exposure for these people in ways that traditional bracket structures don't always support. So that was my main thing about this, is like ways to support creators without in a formalized way. One of the And like the big question is here, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, like how much do they even care about competitive play, right? How much, and then the thing, like everything you're saying about the Pro League struggling viewership for tournaments, it's 2,000 people. It's like not that many people. And especially right now we're all stuck at home. It's like not enough people are watching these things. Obviously they're not generating the kind of spectation, which seems to be the goal of a thing like this. And Brian Kibler had a great thread on Twitter, which you should definitely go and read, which is saying about, the reason people get excited to watch these tournaments and to play in these things is because they see themselves there. It's kind of different from traditional sports, which we like in esports too. I see myself in some ways, like I could be that person up there on video someday if I play hard enough. There's that promise there. I think that's important to keep. Like with on Arena, they have like win $2,000 if you win this tournament on Arena this weekend. You don't have to go anywhere. You just play in it. Or this leveling up thing, is that something that they will continue to support in the future, or is it going to go away?
Yeah, it is difficult to tell right now how organized play, how competitive play will feature in the, especially given the article that Wizards published with regards to how it's going to be focusing a little bit more on the casual scene, definitely more on the local scene. I honestly really don't know. The company has shifted gears quite a bit in the past couple of years, so we will see how this even becomes implemented. If it becomes implemented. So on the other hand, I mean, I am also just, and I agree with you, Emma, like one of the things that's so wonderful about the game and why it's attracted so many great people is because it is a really good game. And there are many nuances and complexities about it that are fully explored in a competitive environment. The way certain cards work together, interactions you hadn't even thought about, like it's a galaxy brain moment. And I think that is a really important part of Magic, if only because it helps push the game to better, more interesting heights in that aspect. I mean, obviously Magic the Gathering is a very complex game with a very complex, multifaceted community, but the competitive scene, I think, is an integral part of what the game is, and I hope what it can be in the future.
Yeah. Well, moving right along, we have a very sad, since this will be Derek's final Warhammer corner. This is the last time that we'll ever talk about Warhammer with any sort of certainty or knowledge.
How many hammers?
I'll try to leave you appropriate notes, but I'm sure that you can just summon me in, from retirement when you need to. But we were talking about last week, last episode, how it was Warhammer Fest all week. They had a whole bunch of new announcements every day over the course of the week for different kind of stuff they were putting out. And the big surprise on Saturday that people were speculating about that we didn't know the deals were is a new edition of Age of Sigmar. So this is the third edition of Age of Sigmar. First edition of it came out in 2015. Second edition came out in 2018. If you're not familiar, Age of Sigmar was the replacement for Warhammer Fantasy. So it's the fantasy, like high magic kind of a miniatures game from Games Workshop, basically. So their big announcement for the new edition talked about how they're going to clean up the rules, make them clearer, concise, things like that. There's some story elements of how there's these new Stormcast Eternals that have some new armor that help them get around some previous plot elements and shenanigans that were happening with demons and devils and oh my, all left and right. I think the most important thing, as somebody who's not deep into Sigmar itself, the things that really stood out to me were twofold. One, there's a new celestial creature or agent of kind of the god of good of Sigmar himself called Ndrasta, I believe. And it's just a gorgeous model. It's an angelic lady in a full suit of armor with like a little side cut and hair going over the side, holding a huge big ass spear. It just looks like an awesome model that I would love to build or convert or something, just do something with. It just looks super cool. And then with those new Stormcast Eternals that have a slightly modified armor, so you can get a little bit of variety to your army if you want. One of the models they're previewing is a guy with a black guy with dreads with his head exposed, which most of the Stormcast Eternals don't have. Every now and then they do. And it's nice to see some of that variety in there. You'll have variety in your army. It's nice to see some representation. I'm always happy when Games Workshop kind of takes that additional step. So those are gorgeous looking models. If you've been curious about Age of Sigmar, sounds like a good time to jump in. They've had a bunch of new models just come out recently. We've been talking about them. And now you have a new edition. So maybe it'll be a little bit of an even playing field as everybody kind of has to learn the new rules and get used to it. So jump in.
Yeah, I love the armor
Mhm.
on this woman. It's well, I mean, it's about as practical as it can get for Warhammer. But it is, I love that it is more practical looking, very much oh my goodness, what's her name? The big woman from Game of Thrones. Brienne of Tarth.
Oh,
there
yes.
we go.
Hmm.
It's very,
Like,
I get a lot of
very
Brienne of Tarth.
specific about your big womans.
Yeah, I know.
They're
Nowadays,
in nowadays.
there's more than one, and I love it.
All right, nerds. You guys, you did it. Okay, you ruined it for everybody. All right, now, okay, they're not selling Pokemon cards at Target anymore because y'all don't know how to act right in these streets. All right, after weeks of violence, after fights, after threats, after a gun was pulled. Okay, Target has now, for the safety of its clientele, has pulled Pokemon cards from Target shelves. We're already in a Pokemon crisis right now where it's so hard to find where Pokemon cards are being sold, and you cannot go down to your friendly local Target because they are tired of you nerds acting ridiculous in these streets. There was a recent gun-related incident in Brookville, Wisconsin, a Target where four men pulled guns, or four men were involved in a attack on another man as he was leaving the store, and the other man was like, somebody needs to call the ambulance, but not for me, and pulled out a gun, which is one of my favorite memes.
Me too. I'm glad that you could work that in just for me.
Thank you. It was my parting gift to you. So now Pokemon cards are not being sold at Target anymore. We are in the great Pokemon crisis of 2021, and this is not making anything better. And you nerds got to get your lives straight, okay? And I will not be buying bootleg Pokemon cards of anybody's trunk of anybody's car. I only want official Pokemon cards from sellers. I don't know what's happening with this black market card game thing, but we need to get it right, okay? Like, please stop doing this. We already went through McDonald's kids scalpers. We're going through it right now with the Pokemon cards. Everybody relax. It's supposed to be fun. speaking of,
There's a whole world here. Michelle is just completely like, what?
Wait.
I'll fill you in later, Michelle.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
I'm just like,
we
what McDonald's?
yeah, there's so much going on. Speaking of things that are supposed to be fun, Derek, it sounds like there is a creator day happening with Ichio, which sounds actually like it's really a lot of fun. We love Ichio. We constantly debate on how to pronounce it. I say Ichio, which is the correct way.
No, itch.io, got it. Don't worry, you're
no
cool.
one says it that way. So please tell us more about it.
So itch.io, as everybody knows, is familiar with the term. They are an independent storefront focused on independent creators, and they announced that today, for 24 hours until midnight Pacific, is Creators Day. So they're going to waive all of their processing fees for anybody who buys stuff on Itch. This is very similar to, if anybody's familiar with Bandcamp Fridays, which have kind of been a long tradition. On Fridays, Bandcamp wouldn't take anything from independent creators. So then everybody would share their cool Bandcamp links. And I'm really hoping that this will catch on and become a tradition for Itch as well, where on Friday, everybody gets together, or on whatever day they pick, everybody like starts sharing the links of cool stuff they found, stuff you should check out, because all of the revenue will go to the creators. A lot of them might have a sale up or something like that. But this is a really good shot, or a really good time if you have been thinking about a game for a little while, you want to try something new, give it a shot, buy it. The creator will get all the money for it, and you'll have something cool to check out. If you want a short list of things to go peruse on Itch while you're there, I'd recommend Hardwired Island, which I haven't had a chance to actually read in detail yet, but it sounds like it's kind of the kind of socially aware cyberpunk that I always love, and there's a lot of praise going for it. Lancer is another one that I haven't had a chance to do more than skim, but it's gorgeous. It's been a darling in the indie scene for quite a while now. There's a number of Blades in the Dark related stuff that I'd recommend. John Harper, the creator of Blades in the Dark, has his own storefront on the website where he's got Agon, Blades in the Dark, Lasers and Feelings. There's a group called A Couple of Drakes that's been doing really, really cool, like one-page scores for Blades in the Dark, really kind of inspiring prompts, basically. There's Cyber plus Punk, which is like CBR plus PNK, and that's a cyberpunk reskinning of Blades in the Dark, where a crew is getting back together for one last job, and it's just a threefold pamphlet, and it's your character sheet and the rules and everything in that one pamphlet, and it's just gorgeously executed. I definitely recommend checking it out. And then finally, we've talked about it before, Grant Howlett, the designer of Spire and Heart. Both he has his own personal store on Itch, and Rowan, Rook, and Deckard, the publisher of those games, has a store on Itch. So check out Spire, Heart, Goblin Quest, Honey Heists, all of those things. Today is the day to go shopping on Itch, basically.
Honey Heist and Goblin Quest are amazing. So
yep,
you should play it. You get to be a bear who does crimes. How is this not a great game?
Derek, are you ready for the speed run that you're about to do? This is Derek's, as we all say goodbye, we are going to announce the bundle boss. Jamaican air horns. For the last time, let's all say farewell to the boss, the final boss, Derek.
Well, the final bundle I get to present as boss is Icons. So Bundle of Holding has brought back, I believe, a 2016 bundle that they put together for Icons. Icons is a classic superhero RPG designed by Steve Kenson. For the bundle they brought back for $15, you get the core book, a bunch of player options, a bunch of pre-generated characters. For $26, you get the GM collection. It's got enemies, variant rules, 6 adventures, a full campaign. So that's the one that they resurrected from several years ago. The new bundle is Icons Universe, and this is all new stuff for the bundle. For $10, the starter collection is a bunch more pre-gens, a bunch more player options, 3 more adventures. The bonus collection at $21 is even more alternate rules for the campaign as a whole, a bunch of bad guys, a bunch of monsters, 3 more adventures. So this is really do you like superheroes? Because if so, this is how you get superheroes, is you buy this bundle. I think most notably, something that's touched all our a cause that we like to see kind of represented here is 10% of all the proceeds are donated to the Transgender Law Center, which Steve Kenston was involved in selecting. So if you like superheroes, go get some and help a worthy cause.
Nice.
Ooh.
Emma, do you have some tunes that you want to give as we enter to Kickstarter court? Now hear ye. Now announcing Kickstarter Queen in Kickstarter court far and wide. Now listen to Her Royal Majesty Queen Derek of the Hammer Wars. That was good, right?
From the New England Hammer Wars, of course, just to be clear. So, as the last Kickstarters that I want to share with everybody on a regular basis, and then I will fully abdicate the throne and leave it up to our host to officiate each week, we have 4 projects to go over. First, with 6 days left, we have Dominations Deluxe. Now, this is not a game I've played, but if you recall, we recently talked about the American Tabletop Awards, and Dominations won Best Complex Game of the Year for 2021. And I'm a sucker for any sort of deluxe component version of a game. So look, if anybody is curious about it, you want to jump into it, or you really love civilization building games or complex interlocking games, and you want them to look really nice in a slipcase on your shelf that has spaces for all their expansions, here you go. Like going through the details again, I haven't played it, but going through the summary they have on the page, I think that this will appeal to a lot of people who maybe have not explored civilization building games before, because this one is explicitly not about building an army or waging wars or conquering territory. It's very much just about building your nation, gaining knowledge and kind of expanding your culture and your technology and your monuments, basically. So it sounds like a really interesting tableau civilization tech tree interlocking kind of game. It won an award, so lots of people think it's really good. And this is a Kickstarter. This is an opportunity for you to get the Kickstarter exclusives, get some upgrades. So it's definitely worth checking out if anything like that sounded appealing to you. I think it's like €34 if you just want the new stuff. If you want the upgrades and the slipcase and the expansion, if you've already got everything, or it's €150 if you want the whole kit and caboodle shebang. And that has 6 days left for Dominations. With 7 days left, I'm sure that anybody could have predicted I was going to pick this one, because it is Court of Blades, where it's Blades in the Dark, but with more courtly intrigue. So instead of assassinating and smuggling and thieving, you are hosting balls, spreading rumors, and attending soirees. So I am 100% on board with this. You are playing agents of a noble house that is scheming in the city to gain more power for itself. And you're being sent out on errands to kind of boost your weird idiosyncratic house. Totally up my alley. I always love the kind of thing where you play nobility and get to stab everybody in the back while smiling at them. It's just one of the things that I adore. And there's a stretch goal that allows you to play the house itself, the fully blooded members of the house, not just their minions, basically. So if everyone hops on board, then we can all enjoy that as well. So that's got 7 days left. Court of Blades. With 8 days left, we have Sirens, Battle of the Bards. And if anybody remembers Red Opera back in the day, I think we talked about that Kickstarter. It was one of the first Kickstarters I saw that came with a whole symphonic orchestra soundtrack associated with it. And now they're back again with another big campaign of a symphonic orchestra soundtrack. Do you like bards? Because this is apparently the campaign where everyone plays a bard. There's 10 bard subclasses. There's 20 adventures in here that all kind of interconnect to each other that lead to multiple different outcomes and whatnot. There's a fantasy city that seems to be a slightly different spin, where instead of the usual thing I love of the weird, like, city with a warlock and a rogue in every corner and dark secrets and weird stuff going on. It's a city that celebrates the arts and is trying to encourage expression and perfection and stuff like that. So really cool stuff. A big long campaign. If you want a campaign with an epic soundtrack, you have 8 days to check out Siren Battle of the Bards. And then the final project with 10 days left is Monster Hearts Brave New Worlds. And again, Monster Hearts is another game that's really near and dear to my heart because it's all the social manipulation of vampire boiled down to the existential angst of high school. So this is a group of queer and BIPOC authors who have gotten together to write different and weirder scenarios for your high school of Monster Hearts to exist in. The creator of Monster Hearts is involved. They are writing one of the scenarios, but it's not an official Monster Hearts product. So I think there's like 12 different cities or high schools in here. The ones that stood out to me the most were Ennismouth, which is basically the Lovecraftian village, but racked with an opioid epidemic. There's the Academy Beyond the Hedge, where the Fae think it's really cool and stylish to steal human children and then put them in like a fake high school and see what they do. There's there's Siren's End, where like parts of reality are getting erased, but people don't notice, and you're the one of the people who does. There's Duplicity, which apparently is heavily inspired by Dr. Seuss. So I love Monster Hearts. I think this is a really interesting way to mess with it. And it comes from a group of creators who have a perspective I'm really interested in seeing how it is expressed through playbooks and mechanics and setting and elements and theme. So I'm all on board. You have 10 days left for Monster Hearts Brave New Worlds. And that's it.
The end of an era. Thank you so much for that, Derek. Really appreciate you. Well, you guys, that is sorry, Derek, you're like twitching out into like other
It's clear
your
spacing
reality
out.
is glitching.
It's spacing out.
This is why he's leaving. He's phasing
Siri,
out
close the
reality.
not maintain his corporeal form. Thank you so much for joining us for this first episode. Michelle, hopefully you'll be able to join us for many more episodes in the future. If you had a good time, if you didn't have a good time, it's fine. It's okay. We'll just move past it. All right.
I got distracted by your blinds. just like coming down, just very dramatically. I had a wonderful time. I would be so happy to come back and talk more about games and magic and nerdery, and marginalized and representation of marginalized communities. So yay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Derek, for your service and for your contributions to gaming. And I cannot wait for you to also come back onto the show for very special episodes. Emma, you're the best always, and you're a bean, and you're a little sparkly little sweet pea, and never change. I just want to make sure everybody feels good.
And you were an amazing host.
Yeah, thank you, Isabella.
Yeah, thank you for guiding us.
You don't gotta do that. It's fine. Stick around. We're actually going to be having another guest come on to TableTakes, because in a few short minutes we'll be joined by Daniel Kwan from the ENnie award-winning Asians Represent Jamaica Air Horns podcast to discuss more on his work with the Candlekeep Mysteries. I will also be hosting that as well. Go pee. God, get some liquids. Stretch for a while. Stretch yourselves. You know, that's good. It's always good to stretch. And then come back. We'll be back in 5 minutes or so that we can talk to Daniel Kwan. Until then, stay safe. Get vaccinated. Wear your mask. Even no matter what anybody says, okay, just do it. Just do it. And we will see you guys next week. Actually, no, I'm going to see y'all in 5 minutes. Bye. Hello. Hello, welcome back. That's right. You thought you could get rid of me, but like most things in 2021, I just keep coming back over and over again, no matter how much you wash your hands. I'm joined by Daniel Kwan, who is a narrative designer, a cultural consultant, the co-host of the ENnie award-winning podcast Asians Represent. Wow, Daniel, that's quite the introduction.
Thank you.
I'm intimidated now that I've read
Nah,
this.
nah, 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 nah. Not at all. This is cool. We're just chilling.
Yes, yeah. We're pretending that we're friends. That's
No. After this, we will be friends because we're gonna get to know each other. We're gonna, talk about like games and cool shit. Can I swear on this?
You have now.
Games and games and cool shit. Why not? Breaking the rules at Gen Con, apparently.
Thank you so much is this the first time that you joined Gen Con?
This is my first time that I've done one of these like sort of interview things. I did Gen Con online last year, and then I've been to Gen Con twice.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for those who are not cool enough, not hip enough to understand how awesome you are, can you please give us an introduction of yourself and what's your background in gaming?
Oh my God. I mean, like you said, you hit all the key points. You hit all the beats there. Yeah, I'm a game designer, narrative designer, cultural consultant, podcaster. I run the Asians Represent podcast alongside some amazing Canadians. We talk about, Asian representation in games media, wider pop culture, as well as, producing a lot of educational content, kind of deconstructing a lot of the, the more problematic content that's kind of out there depicting Asian people. Yeah, so that's what I do. In terms of how long I've been doing stuff in gaming, I've kind of been involved. I've been playing tabletop RPGs for 21 years.
Since you were born? Since you were a
how
baby?
old do you think I am?
I don't, not on stream. We can't play this game on stream.
I'm 31.
Okay.
Yeah. But I have been blessed with youth.
Yes. Asian don't Rasian, as they.
I know, right? I'm just gonna stay like this, and then all of a sudden, just look real old. So I'm just gonna enjoy it while it lasts. No, I've been playing D&D for just over 2 decades, and I've been involved in like games adjacent work for about 15 years. I've been involved in design for about like maybe 4 years.
Oh, wow.
4 years at this point.
Awesome.
I started off actually working in education, using tabletop games at a museum to teach kids, history, science, and social skills. And I did that for about 14 years in like various capacities. And then, now I work a lot in sort of the autism and other disability spaces with an organization that I co-founded back in 2016 called Level Up Gaming. And we basically provide adults with who are on the autism spectrum or have other disabilities with opportunities to develop their social skills through tabletop games. We've been doing that in person and now virtually for about 4 years now.
That's awesome.
Thank
you.
you.
I really have learned more, especially being on the show, about the ways in which tabletop gaming. I have to admit that I've been very selfish with it before. I just thought like, oh, it's just like having fun with my friends, and like it was not any deeper than that. But like through the show, discovering how it's being used educationally, how it's being used as empathy tools for people, to broach hard to talk about discussions, like self-harm or depression or things like that. That's really opened up an entire world for me. And I think that's awesome, that work that you do. And also the work that you do with Asians Represent, which I just started listening to, because spoiler alert, had a lot of free time in 2021.
We all had a lot of free time. So you know what? We had a lot of free time, and I appreciate that you gave us some of your free time.
It was a lot of trying to discover new voices and trying to discover like what's out there and stuff like that suddenly with my free time. And one of the things that I wanted to ask with the podcast, though, is 2020 was I mean,
It's
like,
huge for us.
I mean, who wasn't it for? I mean, it was a crazy year, and I wanted to ask about, first of all, how long have you guys been doing the podcast?
We've been doing it since 2018.
Okay.
2018. We started off just doing like a monthly episode, and then we did like bi-monthly, and then we started doing some actual play stuff. It was really slow. And then 2020 happened.
Yeah.
And then everything went crazy. Prior to 2020, we didn't do anything on Twitch or YouTube at all. It was just purely our audio feed. And 2020 kind of made us reevaluate. Well, I wouldn't say made it. It forced us to adapt and kind of change how we were kind of planning our content rollout. So now we're kind of doing, Twitch, we got YouTube, and then of course just our standard podcast stream. And it really forced us to evolve since we first started. So I think like a lot of podcasts, 2020 really made folks assess their, their production strategies and everything like that.
Was that just because of the fact that our whole structure of time and everything had changed? Or was that, do you feel like there was a demand for more representation or diverse voices? What do you think exactly kind of fed into that whole boom?
Honestly, we just missed each other.
Oh.
We just missed each other. We part of it was that we missed each other, and the other part was that we had been talking about streaming for a while. Everything we did prior to 2020 was really, we recorded everything in person. And then we couldn't for a while, so we were like, okay, let's put this on pause. Let's think about what we want to do. And then we kind of had this conversation about streaming. And one of our core members, Jade, had been asking that we do some stream content for a while, and we were like, I don't know what we're gonna do or anything like that. But Jade said, it's like really important that we do something related to video, because it's important that not only are our voices heard, but also that we're seen.
Right.
And it only adds to the value of Asians represent, since not all Asian experiences are the same, not all Asian stories are the same, and not all Asian people look the same.
Right.
And so the video kind of added to that. And we kind of started with that, we kind of started with a joke. I am reminded by Steve that I joked about, hey, what if we read Oriental Adventures live, just to kind of start streaming. And we were like, okay, let's just do that. And it just kind of blew up into this thing that we're doing now. And I'm really proud of everyone involved in the series, everyone who's ever helped. Like, you folks just had Michelle on, and Michelle does like a monthly stream with us and is doing some other things, and it's just been a really cool way for us to put more voices on our platform. Because when we were recording in person, it was really limited to folks we were seeing at cons. Rest in peace, cons, for a while, until Gen Con in September. And folks who lived in our city, because we're in Toronto. And now it allows us to interact and kind of learn from folks who are just on the other side of the world, which has been, honestly, I think the most valuable part of the experience to me, is that I've been able to learn from all of these people.
And see, the thing that I think is really interesting is like, so much tabletop gaming borrows from Asian cultures. Visually, the kind of the religion, the mysticism of it, and yet you never see diverse voices. You never see Asian representation or Asian voices actually engage with that media. And that was really something that I kind of was really, really interested with Asians Represent, which was like, how do actual Asian people feel about these things? That they're just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say have been stolen or plundered from you guys, but like, so much of that heavy borrowing that happens does not have any sort of, there's no thought process of how actual Asian communities do interact with those games.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, we see comments and like, oh, I didn't know that Asian people play TTRPGs, and it's just like, yeah, no, we do. We've been playing for a very long time, and you make a good point there, and it's just that we weren't visible. or we weren't heard, or the our voices weren't being valued. And so it's been a really cool experience to not only put these voices out there and share my own, but also teach people why these other products can be problematic and harmful to folks who look like us.
Right, because I think so many people think that they're appreciating Asian culture, but actually, like, there's a very thick line between appreciation and appropriation.
Oh yeah.
And it's a conversation that we're having more and more these days. I mean, especially I get the same sort of comments with Black women. Like, it's always this idea of like, Black women like this stuff. Like, yeah, there's so many of us. The problem is that, like, if you're not looking for us or you're not open to hearing from us, then of course you're never going to see us. You're never going to know about it, and so that's the reason why I love listening to you guys over there, because of the fact that I've never really processed how much of gaming borrows so heavily from Korean, Japanese, Chinese, like all these different kind of cultures, and never even takes into account. And I feel like a lot of people feel like they're almost doing a favor, by being
it's like, oh, I'm doing it for you. I love this so much. I just wanted to share my love so I could share. Yeah, it's like, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with, like, I think one thing to be clear about is, like, there's nothing wrong with appreciating our cultures. But in the TTRPG spaces, it often, that appreciation kind of turns into, like you said, I'm doing you a favor, or I'm speaking for you because you can't speak. And that's an assumption a lot of non-Asian creators make. It's like, no, I'm doing this for you. Right. It could be, and that's something that we want people to understand. It's like, we're not here to just like pile on to these games and be like, this is terrible. We're here to kind of say, hey, here's why this is harmful, and here's how this can improve.
Exactly.
And here are these voices that you can turn to if if you're a publisher and you want to make a new product or anything like that, right? So it's really about, like, bringing everyone together, and having a conversation. And
exactly.
And sometimes Asians represent, just happens to, we like to start these conversations.
See, that's the thing that I think a lot of people get wrong. It's like, I'm critiquing this thing because I want it to be better. I'm not critiquing this thing because I want it to be destroyed and I want it to, like, no one's going to be able to play this thing. I'm critiquing this thing because I see its potential, and I see that it has potential for everyone to enjoy this thing if you just these things, and I feel like whenever you do critique it, people are always going to be like, well, then if you don't even like it, then why are you playing? And it's like, no, because I do.
It's because I'm playing in a system that doesn't like me back.
Right. And if I didn't like it, then I wouldn't even bother with it. I would ignore it. But because I do like it is the reason why I invest so much time and energy into it. And so I don't know, that's what I really appreciate about you guys. And so I have to say, that you guys are an award-winning. Here on TableTakes, we have no awards. We have 0 awards, okay? You guys are an award-winning. What was that like to be recognized in that kind of way?
Oh man, it was like, I was it was really cool. I think we're the first all Asian podcast to ever win an ENnie in that category.
Okay.
So, like, that was really cool. It was cool that people kind of came together to be like, hey, these folks, what they're doing is worthwhile. It was a cool validation. It was awesome to share that with everyone who had been there. I think it also showed that, like, Asian voices have value.
Yeah.
It was neat. It was neat. I'm a little bummed we didn't get to do it in person because the song, because when if you win an ENnie, you get to pick, like, the song that plays, and I picked like a cool Asian songs, but it didn't happen because it was on Twitch.
What did you pick? What was your song?
I ended up picking a song called "Testify" by Aquafina.
Okay.
Which I thought was kind of fitting for that if we were to win. But yeah, it was a cool experience, and I'm happy that we did it. And my mom even like framed my ENnie, which is just so cute.
I was gonna
Yeah.
ask about that. I was like,
Yeah,
your
actually,
mom,
I took it off the shelf to show, like, yeah, my mom actually framed the thing.
God.
Yeah, there.
Yes. Hold on.
There. Yeah, my mom framed the thing and like and everything. It was cute.
Did your mom even understand? I don't think my mom even understands like what this is. I don't.
She does. She
Yeah.
does. Yeah, you know what? It's really funny because when we were all Canada has been under lockdown the longest of any country, right? And we couldn't see each other for a really long time. And so one of the things that we started doing is playing D&D.
You and your mom?
Yeah, my mom, my dad, my brother, my girlfriend, and I, we all
No
started playing
way.
D&D. Yeah.
God,
And they had never played before. Like my brother had when we were kids, but my parents and my girlfriend has. But my parents had never played before. And we ended up playing we did a pre-made adventure, the introduction adventure in the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount book, the Critical Role setting. And we played the intro adventure, and we used D&D Beyond. I walked my mom and my dad through it, and we played weekly through the whole adventure. We ended up playing a couple of one shots in person when we finally got to do it. I pulled out all of my like Dwarven Forge. I went all out. And then we played a Star Wars 5th edition hack. And my parents both watched all of the Star Wars movies to prepare for it. Because they're for like they had seen the original trilogy, but they had never watched the prequels or the post original trilogy movies. So they watched all of them, and we played a Star Wars game together. It was pretty cool.
I love that. I love.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would watch a whole series of like your family playing these games together. But I love.
It was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Like families playing games together. That's such a, I don't know. It's so wholesome. It's awesome. My family, we can't even play Monopoly without being at each other's throats. So I couldn't imagine that.
Well, here's the thing though, like D&D is collaborative, right? Tabletop RPGs are collaborative. So, it brought everyone together, and it was cool seeing everybody's personalities. Like my dad is 100% the player who's like, I attack that person without question. And my mom was like, just playing herself. She was just, she's being that Asian mom. She was like, I'm just going to cook food for everyone. That's how healing magic works, right? I'm like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's so cute.
It's adorable.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your work while we have you.
Yeah.
So you did the Candlekeep Mystery Adventure, the Book of Inner Alchemy. Could we get like a little brief summary of what that book is?
Yeah, Candlekeep Mysteries is this really cool anthology of 5th edition D&D adventures written by, like a really cool and diverse group of designers from all walks of life. And the Book of Inner Alchemy is a 12th level adventure that I wrote, kind of inspired by, Kung Fu cinema of like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And it's about a martial arts manual that is being stored at this, the High Library of Candlekeep, and it's stolen by the Order of the Immortal Lotus, and they're a martial arts order who love to collect knowledge, whether by force or by coin. And their leader, Bak Mei, who many folks recognize as Pai Mei from like Kill Bill and things like that. Wanted a particular page of the Book of Inner Alchemy, and it was a page that would allow him to basically craft these magical gloves that could give him eternal life. And so it's all about kind of facing off against this martial arts order and retrieving this ancient text.
See, the thing I like about the Candlekeep, first of all, that's awesome that you were able to be part of that whole initiative, because when I first heard about it, there's so many issues of representation inside of D&D, especially when it comes to cultural issues. And so the wave of people that they were bringing in, the artists, the writers, it was just like this amazing roster of some of like the best diverse voices in gaming right now.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think they did. At least my experience was really good. they let me they had very minimal interference with what I wrote.
That's awesome.
So like honestly, like key or chi is a really big part of like the monk in D&D, and they allowed me to really fix sort of the cultural touch points from my own culture that are in D&D that are now canon, which is really cool. So I was really grateful that they were like, no, you can't do this. They were like, take it and go.
That's
And
awesome.
so I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that. If that was like, for me, I was like, if that's the only thing I ever do in TTRPGs, I'm happy.
No, I mean, it sounds like, all of your work kind of collectively bringing your authentic self, your background, your history, all of that stuff to TTRPGs is like really amazing. One of your latest projects is this game about Canada's involvement in World War One,
Yeah.
which like we never.
Yeah, you never hear about it.
Yeah.
At least unless you're in Canada, then you hear about it all the time. That was actually my first TTRPG product.
Okay.
Well, the first one I ever started. It started back in like 2017 when I was teaching at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, and I was basically trying to figure out a way that I could teach my students about World War One, and I couldn't find a World War One RPG that did what I wanted it to do. So I was like, I talked to two of my friends who worked at the museum as well, and we were like, why don't we just make our own?
Yeah.
And so now we have like Ross rifles, and it's like part history book, part game manual.
Yeah.
And we designed it to be real rules light, really easy to make the characters you want to make and tell the history you want to tell. One of the important things about this book to me is that we put a lot of work into doing like the background research, because all of us came from historical backgrounds. So we spent time with active duty military. We went to museums. We went to the Canadian War Museum, spent time in their armory, handling all of the rifles, talking to their curators, and talking to veterans, because PTSD was something that that affects soldiers to this day, but also had a very profound effect on folks during World War One when it wasn't well understood. So we put a lot of research into that, but not only that, but also kind of representing communities that we didn't see in our education system.
Yeah.
So when you learn about World War One or you watch World War One movies, you just see white folks.
Yeah.
But we put a lot of effort into talking about like the Black Canadians who were fighting in the war, the Chinese Canadians, the Japanese Canadians, the Indigenous folks who fought and died in the war, to kind of tell the players that you could be who you want to be, and you could tell these stories, and you should be telling these stories. So that I'm really happy about that, and we're actually we're in like 30 minutes. We're going to be using Ross rifles to tell like a Star Wars story. And
Cool.
yeah, we're going to be, I reskinned Ross rifles to work in the Clone Wars, which I felt was like a close analog to the First and Second World War. Mostly because, if you watch Star Wars media, the Clone Wars is really interesting because, if you look at the clones of these characters who, were bred for this conflict and that's their only role. But when you look at like TV shows like the Clone Wars, they talk about these characters and give them these rich backgrounds and stories. And it's very much what we were trying to do with Ross rifles, is create these individual stories about soldiers who are trying to find themselves in this conflict. And so we're going to do it in Star Wars and see if it works. I've never tried it before, but I've had this idea for a while.
You're doing that actually like right after this, right?
Yeah, we're going to hop into the green room, get ready, and 7 o'clock Eastern, we're gonna go live with that.
Awesome. Okay, so speaking of, what are you currently working on? Do you have any future projects? What's coming up? We just teased a little bit about what's coming up today.
Yeah.
But I see the wheels turning in that brain of yours.
I know. I've got a lot of things going on right now. A couple of them are under NDA, but the stuff I can talk about, I've got 2 independent projects that I'm finishing up right now. First one's called Wicked Congregation. It's a solo journaling game about that's set in this fictional sort of universe that I've been writing, called the Bureau of Paranatural Survey. and it's essentially about an agent of this agency who finds themselves trapped in a small mountain town and hunted by a cult.
Sign
It's a
me up.
solo game. It uses the Wretched Alone system. Right now, I'm waiting for the graphic designer that I'm collaborating with to kind of get back to me. He's got the text and everything, so it's in his hands right now. The other thing I'm working on is a project called The Chronicles of Spring and Autumn, and it's a system agnostic fantasy campaign setting that's set in like a fantasy China, and it's really inspired by a very particular period of Chinese history. Really, only about 30 years of China's history, about 2,500 years ago. There was this state called Yue, and they existed during like the Zhou dynasty, like the warring states period, and they were really unique because they were one of the only folks in Chinese history to really get into swords and naming swords, which is something that people in Europe do a lot. But it was just like a really cool thing, and so I've been writing this campaign setting very slowly but purposefully.
See, this is the thing, Daniel. Like, this is why we need people like you, okay? Because like you are bringing ideas and concepts that are out there, but because of the fact that we, for a very long time, we've kind of been hearing the same voices over and over again. We've been deprived of those kinds of stories. And I just love the fact that, one, you're engaging with history and making history recontextualized. I think a lot of people can think that history is sort of a dead thing. It lives in the past, it's over with, it's black and white,
I mean, it definitely doesn't, right? I mean, we're seeing it right now in, Canada, and we're seeing that in America with just how, folks are being treated.
Yeah.
Very much rooted in history. And we're very much, seeing things like people failing to acknowledge history.
Right.
And that causes a lot of problems.
And that if you don't know history, that you're doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
And so, and God, I was just talking to my friend about how a lot of what's going on with Corona mirrors exactly what happened during the Black Plague. And so, it's just we go around and we go around again. And I think that's really cool about your work, is that you really recontextualize that stuff, and that you're taking concepts that, that have been out there, but you're putting them in a new frame for new audiences. And I think that's incredible. Daniel, where can people find you if they want to consensually stalk you on the internet?
Oh yeah, no, totally. Stalk me on the internet. It's all good. Best way to find me is just on Twitter, because it's a hub for everything I do. You can find me at Twitter at Daniel H. Kwan. So I guess my screen name that's on the stream right now, just all one word.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your time. For coming onto the show. Please come onto the show again. Please do
I'd love to.
Danger, especially because of the fact that you have project after project after project. So if you want to come on and you want to talk about your latest project, please do not hesitate.
Well, I think we're doing something with you folks on the 28th, but we haven't put out 2 weeks. We haven't put out an announcement yet, but I think it's going to be sweet. Marcus, you know what's going on, but I think it's going to be sweet.
Thank you all for watching today's episodes of TableTakes. I've been your host, Isabella L. Price. Please stay tuned. Do not touch that dial because we have more in plan for you guys in the future. Let me tell you all about our streaming schedule on Gen Con on Twitch. Monday at 4:30, we have One Man Murder Maze, which is not the latest Saw sequel title, even though I think that would have been a really cool title for the next Saw movie, other than Spiral, which I feel like...
I mean, Spiral, One Man Murder Maze, I mean, Yeah,
see, One Man Murder Maze, though, that would have sold me. So that is a one-on-one D&D podcast featuring Invader Zim staff writer Eric Trueheart and the voice of Gur, Ricky Simmons. At 6 p.m. on Monday, we have board games with the Brothers Murph. Join the Brothers Murph as they hang out and play Fields of Arl. On Wednesday at 10 a.m., we have This Game Gets Dicey. Paula Deming and Matthew Jude compete against each other in online tabletop games. This week, they'll be playing Undaunted Normandy. And Friday, your favorite day, not because it's the end of the work week, but because of the fact that you get to spend it with us. 2 p.m. at Pacific Standard Time, TableTakes. Come back. Let's talk about what's been happening in this week of gaming news. Remember to follow and subscribe. Slap that notification button, hopefully with clean hands. And if you're vaccinated, slap it with your face. I don't know what the rules are anymore. And if you miss a show, you can find most of our streams on YouTube just one day, 24 hours later. If you want to connect with other Gen Con fans, we have an official Discord where you guys can talk, you can gossip, you can talk about my glasses. Do you like them? They're brand new. I just got them this week. Talk about it in the Discord. Thank you guys so much for watching this week. Thank you so much to Daniel. Thank you to Michelle for joining us. Thank you to Marcus helping us in the back end. I see you, Marcus. You're doing great. You're a wonderful bean. And hopefully you guys can all join us again next week as well. Take care. Wash your hands. Get vaccinated. And be kind to yourself and be kind to everybody else. Bye. Also, don't fight anybody in the Target parking lot for Pokemon cards.
Oh my God, can't believe that's a thing. Bye, everyone.